Hello and welcome back to the channel. On the 18th of May, Rahu and Ketu will be changing signs. Rahu will be moving into Aquarius and Ketu will move into Leo. So now Aquarius, it's a very progressive sign where Rahu feels extremely comfortable because it can manifest its unconventional nature. And in Aquarius, people can let their eccentricities shine and also take pride in their unique tastes, whether that be in music, fashion, sexuality, or conviction. But Saturn, which is a ruler of Aquarius, is in Pisces. So all of these unique tastes that people have, these eccentric behaviors, individuals will need to let go of some of these approaches and idealistic visions and try and live in the real world. So while Rahu is strong in Aquarius, its Lord Saturn is not. So there will be some challenges in Aquarius related things. Now Ketu will transit in Leo, which is to do with leadership. Leo is to do with being center of attention and ego. So with Ketu, here you need to let go of some of the ways you are seeking validation and becoming more comfortable with vulnerability. Ketu can reduce your ego and bring you back down to earth. So especially for Leo people, you'll generally feel the effect of this Ketu transit a little bit more. Now, Rahu and Ketu do not aspect other houses, so they are just sensitive points in the sky which influence our karma and destiny. So I don't take any aspects. So let's go through the predictions for each zodiac sign, and as always I recommend looking at transits from the moon first and foremost. So let's get started. For Aries natives, Rahu will be moving into your 11th house in the sign of Aquarius, while Ketu will transit your 5th house in the sign of Leo. So this is the 5th 11 house axis, which represents the interplay between your individual expression and your expression within the social context. With this Rahu and Ketu transit, it is encouraging you to sacrifice a little bit of your individuality, reduce a little bit of your ego, and prioritize social acceptance to try and fit in. So in other words, you need to focus on connecting yourself with other people, with a wider network and communities, rather than keeping yourself segregated. So Rahu in the 11th house and the Lord of the 11th house, Saturn, is in your 12th house. So what this shows is that you can widen your circle of acquaintances. You can meet a diverse range of people, make plenty of friends who can help you better fit yourself into the environment you are in. So for example, if you find yourself at a new stage in your life, you have to be able to integrate yourself. So for example, if you're starting a university course, so if you're a student and you're starting a course, you'll find yourself with other students. So you have to be able to network and connect with them. Or if you recently had a baby, it might help you to connect with other parents or mothers. So you can find yourself with people in a similar situation as you. So that's why this transit is encouraging you to network. If you don't network, then Saturn in the 12th house can make you feel isolated. And when Ketu is in the 5th house, it means that you need to let go of your individuality, connect with the community. So that doesn't have to be in person or face to face. You can connect with people online through Facebook groups, online forums, friendship applications. And if you find yourself in a foreign country, you might explore different meetup groups or networking events. And Jupiter is in Gemini, which is a perfect position for socializing. The 11th house also represents money and income. So with Rahu here, there can be a desire to create new income streams. With Jupiter in the 3rd house and Saturn in your 12th house, there are opportunities for you to set up a creative type of side job, doing something on your own or through involving foreign people. So this can include something like photography, vlogging, marketing, anything which interests you and you have a talent in. Now, not everyone would have that type of talent. So you could potentially do a course because your Jupiter is aspecting your 9th house. So you can learn something and create a new income stream. Now, Ketu in the 5th house can bring some instability if you invest in the stock market or if you engage in any other speculative activities. So this is not financial advice, but Ketu can cause fluctuations in your wealth. So if you want to make money, with Rahu in the 11th house, you need to give something or a service to the community rather than trying to make thousands in the stock market or cryptocurrency or even like something like gambling. So to make the most of this Rahu transit, you need to be of service to the community. Rahu's transit in the 11th house and Jupiter aspecting your 9th house will give some of you a forward-looking attitude where you'll be more inclined to think about the future and dream big and set ambitious goals for yourself. So for example, in your work, some of you may change jobs, or if you don't change jobs, you'll be going through a period of innovation and breaking free from old ideas, processes, and methods. As well as going through potentially innovation in your work, there is also self-innovation where you might be adopting new habits or learning new skills, improving your communication, which is all part of the process of personal growth and development. When Ketu is transiting the 5th house, it indicates an opportunity to move beyond self-centered behaviors. So instead of trying to seek validation and attention, this is a period of ego detachment and letting go of some of your thoughts, feelings, and desires. So ego is not a bad thing because ego actually gives us a sense of self-identity and the power to make our own decisions and have our own values. But this is a period where you have to try to calm that and be more open-minded. Ketu in the 5th house can create a feeling of detachment or emotional distance with your children. So therefore, when a parent has that feeling, there is that risk that they can lose their temper and say things which they do not mean. So this can potentially lead to strained relationships with your children. Ketu's transit in the 5th house can show a lack of commitment to long-term relationships during this transit. Now, Jupiter is in your 3rd house and aspecting your 7th house, so you'll definitely meet new people, but it really depends on your expectations. So sometimes this combination can give many short-term relationships, like a spark, rather than a prolonged romantic relationship. However, if you are married, then the result could be a little bit different because your relationship would have already gone through that romantic stage and possibly become platonic. Now, since Saturn is in the 12th house and Rahu in the 11th house is good, so this combination is good for those working in charity or not-for-profit sector. Those that are involved with social work can also get good results, and those who are involved with advocacy and change and human rights, you can also get realistic results. So not completely what you are advocating for, but going 20 or 30% with what you are fighting for. This Rahu and Saturn can boost your income, but you'll also end up spending a lot. So generally, Saturn in the 12th house can restrict expenses, but because it's in Pisces, it doesn't quite know how to restrict at the beginning. So you do have to take care in how you are spending money. For Taurus natives, Rahu will transit into your 10th house of Aquarius, while Ketu will move into your 4th house of Leo. So this Rahu and Ketu transit will give some mixed results, because while Rahu is good in the 10th house, Ketu is not so good in the 4th house. With this Rahu and Ketu transit, you'll be firmly focused on your professional aspirations rather than your inner life or home life or personal life. So that doesn't mean Ketu will give you negative results. It could just mean that you're not too attached to your home life for the next 18 months and you are not thinking too much about your memories or emotional foundation. So Rahu's transit in the 10th house shows that you will feel a strong pull towards setting and achieving your career goals. This position will amplify your ambition, your drive, and focus your energy on attaining significant long-term milestones. Rahu is very strong in Aquarius. It feels super comfortable. So Rahu is good in the 10th house, it's good in Aquarius, so it is really positive for career. But Rahu in Aquarius will also push you outside of your comfort zone. So you will need to be flexible. You will need to be able to adjust. You may need to be innovative. You may need to challenge the status quo and embrace new ideas and approaches. So in other words, you will need to be flexible. If you are too rigid, then it can be a little bit of a frustrating period as well. And Taurus people in general, generally speaking, they can be a little bit rigid because Taurus is a fixed sign. So it all depends on your natal chart in terms of, how you will feel. But overall, if you can be embraceful, you will get positive results. Now with Ketu in the 4th house, with respect to Rahu, Ketu here can at times literally not do anything. So if you are settled in your home, you are familiar with your surroundings, you have your sense of security already established, there will be nil effect. So no effect at all. But Ketu is an energy which can cause dissatisfaction. So for Taurus people, especially Taurus moon sign people, even if you are settled in your home, you won't feel content. You may want to move somewhere else. So whichever house Ketu is transiting, that is the area of life where you have to learn to be content. Now, if you do decide that you don't want to be content, you don't want to live in your current house, your current place, your current residence, your current city or country, or it might be that you don't like the people you are living with. If you want to buy a new place, then Jupiter in the 2nd house can help you find a place. It can help you buy a place. But you really have to think about the long term rather than the short term. Because Ketu making you feel discontent doesn't mean that you should go and buy a mansion or go and live in another country, because it may not be best for you in the long term. So this is not advice in what you should do, but you just have to be sure about what you are doing is best for you in the long term. So that's the advice I can give. Now, the 10th house, with Rahu transiting here, it represents your social status. it represents your position in society. So with Rahu here, your status can rise. Rahu is being aspected by Jupiter. So you'll be fully invested in your career or business, and you will be earning quite well. Saturn and Jupiter are both in money houses. So these combinations are really fantastic for job and business. So you should really make the most of it, especially while Rahu and Saturn are in your 10th and 11th house respectively. Now Ketu in the 4th house, if you are over 40 or 50, Ketu may not give any kind of results here because you may just be content with how your life is. But other times Ketu in the 4th house can cause some issues. So the 4th house, it represents your mother. So this is a time you can be emotionally disconnected with her. You could all of a sudden have feelings of resentment where you feel like you've been treated unfairly. So there can be some build-up of negative emotions. Another thing could be your mother's health or even your health. So when a person who brought you up is not there anymore in your life, this can cause, extreme sadness. And it's another reason why a person may focus so much on their career, and that is to avoid or run away from any sadness. Now, Saturn is great in the 11th house, as you guys already know. But this position is not that great in relation to 4th house matters. So it shows quite a transformation in your emotions, a real disconnect with your family or your home. So you do have to try and manage that. One thing this Rahu in the 10th house you have to be careful of is that it can give unconventional success. So a person may do whatever it takes to win or rise in their career. So you do have to try and maintain your ethical conduct and integrity. Because Rahu is all about the short term. It wants immediate success. So you have to try and use this energy to give you long-lasting benefit, and not just for this 18-month period. So that's very important. For Gemini natives, Rahu will transit into your 9th house of Aquarius, while Ketu will transit into your 3rd house of Leo. So what this 3-9 house transit represents is about moving beyond familiar patterns, which is the 3rd house, and embracing opportunities, which is the 9th house. So you'll definitely feel like you want to grow your life a little bit more, and you will no longer feel that excited about your immediate surroundings or your everyday life, and instead you'll be drawn towards philosophical exploration, higher learning, and things like long distance travel and different cultures. You will also want to look at the bigger picture a lot more rather than overthinking about details. And you will also turn whatever knowledge you have into wisdom. So this transit is actually a little bit better if you are an older person, because you would have had all of that life experiences behind you. And therefore it can help you make better informed decisions rather than, say, a younger person, generally speaking. So when Rahu is in the 9th house, there are a few different things that can happen. So firstly, this is a time where you will become, or you will have to become, more open-minded and tolerant. So there will be things going on around you where you will have to acknowledge and accept different diverse viewpoints. You may have to become broad-minded and change your views. Jupiter is transiting your 1st house and is aspecting Rahu. So your life will grow and expand if you allow it to. Rahu, you have to remember, is not really a traditionalist. So if you are someone who is very traditional, then this Rahu-Jupiter transit, you may not be able to get as good a results. Whereas if you're someone who is cultured and very open-minded, then this combination can be extremely fruitful. Because you see, Rahu and Jupiter, they are in a trine. So when planets are in a trine, they work together. So it's not that Jupiter is good in the first house, so Jupiter is good in the first house, but here it will be working with Rahu. So if you can work with this Rahu and Jupiter energy, then you can get the best results. Now, Aquarius is a progressive sign. It's a sign which can be unorthodox and unusual. So therefore, Rahu here can show that you will travel and explore places that you may have never considered going to before, or places that have always been on your list that may be very different to your cultural background. So this is a time you can visit these places. So for example, if you always wanted to visit Japan or see the safari in Africa or go anywhere in the world where you wanted to go, this can happen while Rahu is in this house. There's also a chance that any travel you undertake can be for work purposes. So you may be required to travel to the other side of the world by your company because your 9th lord, Saturn, is in the 10th house. So any travel you do undertake, this will help you broaden your belief system and potentially also help your career. Now, broadening your belief system, it doesn't just have to be through traveling because not everybody has that opportunity. So this is a time you can also learn something. It could be something unusual. You could do a course and acquire some sort of skill or knowledge. And this can also be in an unusual type of subject or something involving technology and AI. So if you are interested in technology and AI, this is a good time to do a course. So the point I'm making is that because Aquarius is sitting in your 9th house and Rahu is transiting here, you will be able to develop and grow through Rahu related things. Rahu is a rebellious planet and a planet which likes to question things. So Rahu here can also mean that you could seek new ways of thinking and living. So for example, if you are a very religious person, this is a time a person may go much deeper within their faith because they might be looking for answers. So there could be something which is giving them an urge to search for a deeper meaning. In some cases, a person can also lose their faith and take an interest in another religion or culture. So there could be aspects of other cultures which may interest you with Rahu here. So overall, there can be a shift of perspective or a realization where certain beliefs and teachings no longer resonate. Now, Jupiter is transiting your 1st house, as we know, and Rahu in the 9th house. So this is a time of learning and growing. So you will learn so much over the next 12 to 18 months. And if you are a student, this can also be a positive time. Whatever desire you have to study, you can study. And if you want to go abroad for your degree, your master's, PhD, then this is a good combination for it to happen, as long as it is supported in your natal chart. Now, Ketu is transiting your 3rd house, and this is a time where a person can be shedding their overthinking nature and behavior and overanalyzing conversations less in their day-to-day life. So in other words, you will think and worry a little bit less in your everyday day-to-day life things and focus more on the potential and possibilities. And this can be good because your Jupiter is in the 1st house. So Jupiter in the 1st house is encouraging you to embrace opportunities and possibilities and at the same time looking after you. But when Jupiter moves into your 2nd house, then you do have to take a little bit more care with this Ketu. With this Ketu in the 3rd house, because you're feeling a little bit detached from overthinking in your everyday familiar patterns, you have to take care in terms of signing any documents, because with Ketu here, a person can miss the details because you're just not in that frame of mind. So if there is anything important that you need to take care of, you do have to take care. Ketu in the third house can cause detached feelings with your younger sibling, if you have any, or you can have like some issues with your immediate neighbors. So this is a time you could have a disagreement over property boundaries or noise or lifestyle. So that's something to be mindful of. Ketu transiting in Leo, so you will kind of move away from any ego-driven nature that you had before and become more selfless, more humanitarian. Jupiter in the first house is also a humanitarian planet. It's a planetary guardian, so you can become more kinder and more generous during the next 12 to 18 months. For Cancer natives, Rahu will transit into your 8th house of Aquarius, while Ketu will transit into your 2nd house of Leo. So the nodes will be transiting in the 2-8 house axis, which is about the relationship between your self-worth and values and the values of other people, including your partner and other people who you have a relationship with. The 2-8 house axis is also known as the security axis, which is about building up the resources to support yourself versus the resources and support of other people. So this will be the theme of the transit, you versus other people. Now, Cancer natives are ruled by the moon, and the moon is an energy which needs support. So if you follow Vedic astrology, there is a condition called Kendram Dosh, where the 2nd and 12th houses from the moon are empty, which can lead to some isolation, and the person can experience a lack of support. So this can be a little bit like that, a little bit of a similar situation, depending on how your life is going and your natal chart, because your Ketu is in the 2nd house. So you can be feeling a little bit detached. You might be feeling a lack of support. And because your Jupiter is also in the 12th house, there can also be a little bit of isolation. If not physically, then mentally and emotionally. So one of the predictions can be, why you're feeling like this, is that you could be away from your family or your home with Ketu in the 2nd house. So that could be a reason why you might be feeling a lack of inner peace. Jupiter is in the 12th house, so you could be away from home because you might need some kind of treatment in a hospital, or you might be in a foreign country doing some studying, or it could be for work reasons because your Saturn is in the ninth house, so you could be constantly traveling, which is another reason. So it's not really negative, but for some reason there will be a disconnect from your home or family, either physically, mentally, or emotionally. The 2nd house represents your self-worth. What do you think of yourself? So when Ketu is here, you'll be letting go of any ego you have for yourself. So in the past, if you've had any strong sense of self-worth about yourself, you can lose a little bit of that. And there can be some negative thoughts about yourself. But this is a time to build a foundation of self-love and compassion. And, there comes periods in life where we all have to unconditionally self-accept who we are. And, the older you are, the easier it is. But if you are young in your 20s, then this transit can create some doubts about yourself. But you just have to remember that this is a phase. It will pass. And it's a period to build that foundation. The second house also represents wealth. So Ketu in the second house can show that there can be a lack of motivation to accumulate wealth, or there could be financial fluctuations. Jupiter is in your 12th house. Ketu in your second house shows it's a tricky period for growing your finances over the next 12 months, and your expenses can be quite high. There could also be things happening in your life which could be draining your wealth, such as the birth of a child, or you could even buy a property. But then obviously, when you buy a property, you're losing some of your liquid cash. Now, a positive with Ketu in the second house is that you can get abstract sources of wealth. So these are things, this is money which is beyond employment or business. So it can include things like interest from stocks, or capital gains, or inheritance, or rental income. If you are married or in a relationship, this can also be a time where you lose a little bit of your self-identity, and you're merging with the identity of your partner or other people. So you're losing a little bit of your authentic self, essentially. And in the current society we live in most cultures, things tend to be equal. So this Rahu and Ketu can cause a major imbalance. And when there are imbalances in a relationship, it can sometimes lead to disagreements and arguments. But again, it is about working through them, compromising and adjusting where you can. And you have to understand that there can be periods in life where you need to be there for your partner, and then there will be periods where they need to be there for you. So life is up and down, and this is not relationship advice, but based on my experience, it can be a solution where both of you need to be there for each other. Rahu in the 8th house can also cause significant life transformation. So the 8th house is a very dynamic house. It's a house which represents major changes in life. So this can include moving to a new country, moving to a new place where your values may change. So Ketu in the second house is showing some of the old patterns, beliefs and values being released. And Jupiter in the 12th house is also showing this. So this will be a year where Cancer people, especially Cancer moon people, will 100% need to change their values due to various circumstances. Now, Rahu in the 8th house can also show a person will want to be or can be financially supported by other people or their partner, or it can show that the person has an eye on other people's finances. So Cancer is a sign which is ruled by the moon, and it is a sign which desires to be supported by other people, especially if you are a woman. So you want your husband or partner to take the lead in financial matters, and you can play the more nurturing role. So that can be a positive where during this transit your partner can be heavily supporting your relationship. Now, in terms of relationship, again, with Rahu in Aquarius, there can be a few different results. So firstly, Aquarius is an independent sign. So this can show you or your partner will also need a little bit of freedom in relationships. So moments where both of you can do your own thing. Rahu in Aquarius can also show you or your partner may be seeking novelty. So there will be something new that you want to experiment with or experience. So this can show unconventional intimacy, or this can be a time where you might also value mental and intellectual connection rather than just emotional closeness. In terms of jobs, The 8th house, it represents things like tax, psychology, investigation, and forensic sciences. So especially if you are a detective or you're working as a forensic accountant, where your job may require you to delve deep and investigate, then Rahu's transit here can be very supportive. For Leo natives, Ketu will transit into your 1st house in Leo, while Rahu will transit into your 7th house of Aquarius. So the theme of this transit is about a reduction in your ego and your self-identity, and shifting the focus from yourself to other people. So being more receptive to other people and acknowledging them and their values, beliefs, and ideas. So the 1st house is the most important house in Vedic astrology because it represents your overall state. And whenever we predict anything, whether that be in transit or the natal chart, we always look at the condition of the 1st house. So when an energy like Ketu transits this house, it causes dissatisfaction. So that means that this is a time where you need to be content. Content with your personal life, with your work, with your status, with your money, and overall where you are in your life. If you can be content and just focus on your normal routine, going to work, contributing towards your family, and appreciating the simple things in life, then this Ketu may not cause too much of an issue for you. And the older you are, the less issues Ketu can cause, because as we get older, we generally become more content and not really chase things as much as when we are younger. Now, the problem is, because your Jupiter is in the 11th house, which is a good house for Jupiter, but the thing is, Jupiter is creating a desire. It's bringing a craving or yearning for expansion, and it will give you some expansion, but it may not be enough, so you can feel dissatisfied. So acceptance and contentment are very important during the next 18 months. When Ketu transits the 1st house, this can be a period where you may have to let go of certain parts of your personality. So if you're someone who is very self-conscious, if you have a tendency to worry about your flaws in your appearance, or if you're always thinking about how other people perceive you or how you are coming across, this can be a phase where you have to learn to be more accepting of yourself and who you are and embrace your uniqueness. Ketu transiting the 1st house, especially from the transit of the moon, it can make you feel emotionally vulnerable. So you may have to deal with uncomfortable and difficult emotions from the past, or to do with mother, money, work, your network circle, and it can make you feel some shame, some grief or regret. So if you do feel like this, again, you have to learn to accept it and forgive yourself, and use this opportunity to change some of your behaviors and improve yourself for the longer run. When Ketu is in the 1st house, it can affect your health, especially emotional and mental health, because it can show neglecting yourself for other people or your partner. So you may be self-sacrificing some of your needs and feelings for your partner. So it's always about finding some balance. Even though this transit will cause an imbalance, there are moments in life where, we have to be there for our partner, but you have to find some moments for yourself as well, because you don't want to be emotionally burnt out. Ketu in the 1st house can also cause stomach or abdomen related issues, because Ketu is half of the body. So if the body is cut in half, then you can have pain in that area. So you have to take more care of your diet, I would say, with this Ketu in the first house. Now, the transit of Rahu in the 7th house creates a huge need to experience satisfaction in relationships, especially at the expense of your own physical, emotional, or psychological well-being, which is represented by Ketu in the 1st house. So firstly, if you are single, here you could be fascinated or obsessed with people who are different from you, especially since Rahu is transiting in the sign of Aquarius. You may find some attraction or fascination towards people who are unconventional, and the greater the differences, the greater the appeal for Rahu. Aquarius also represents your finances, and also it shows intelligence. So you can come across people who are extremely wealthy, or extremely intelligent, or extremely unconventional. There could also be some differences in ethnicity, caste, religion, socioeconomic background, or even there could be a significant age difference. Now, Aquarius is also the natural sign of the 11th house, and Jupiter is transiting your 11th house and aspecting Rahu, so there is a strong indication of having a relationship with someone who is in your existing network circle. So strong chances of having a relationship with a friend. So if there's somebody that you like, this could be a time where something can happen. Rahu transiting the 7th house is so intent on building relationships that a person can overextend and make commitments which they cannot fulfill in the longer run. So you could be compromising on some of your principles. So if you are desperate for your relationship to work, it's very important to remain grounded and rational, and not to make promises which in the longer run you may not be able to fulfill. If you're already married or in a committed relationship, it is not necessarily the case that separation, infidelity, or divorce will happen, though this transit can create those type of events, especially infidelity. So therefore, this is a good time to spice up a relationship, doing something different and doing something new, because that is what Rahu here is craving. So you could go on a trip, you could have more shared experiences, more communication, because this is a sign of Aquarius. So there's a number of things you can do. If you are in a business partnership, Rahu here is also trying to change something. So there could be alterations to any agreements that you have. So a partner could be added or removed from a business. There can be change of structure because your Saturn is in the 8th house. So definitely changes around employment or business are there. For Virgo natives, Rahu will transit into your 6th house of Aquarius, while Ketu will transit into your 12th house of Leo. So this 6th-12th house axis, it represents the relationship between your practical world and service, which is the 6th house, and sacrifice, which is the 12th house. This axis is also about maintaining the control you have in your life, which again is the 6th house, and becoming more innovative and efficient, and having some focus on community engagement while experiencing a reduction in ego-driven pursuits. So as I mentioned in the 2025 horoscope for Virgo natives, Rahu in the 6th house is a great position, and this is the best house Rahu can be in for you guys. So this transit will do wonders for your career, especially if you are involved in areas such as advocacy, reform, humanitarian work, and there's a desire to make a difference to the world. So that is what Aquarius represents. This is also good for those who work in organizations that fight against government actions. And Aquarius and Rahu, they are rebellious energies. And they also represent things like technology and AI. So if you work in these areas, then this transit can also be very good. And Jupiter is aspecting Rahu from the 10th house. So it will give you growth and enhancement in your career. Now, Rahu in the 6th house will also give you an opportunity to increase your professional network circle. And this can create opportunities and lead to greater collaboration, mentorship, knowledge sharing, and career advancement. So a really good time for professional networking. Rahu's transit in the 6th house in the sign of Aquarius can give you the ability to see the larger picture and give insights on how to approach your routine with a more innovative and efficient mindset. So you can find better ways of doing certain things. So for example, finding better ways to manage any health issues that you might be suffering. You could be innovative at work, find better ways to complete tasks, and embrace a better structure. The 6th house is also to do with your physical health and well-being. So this can be a time of greater focus on that. You'll be able to stay disciplined in terms of adopting healthier eating habits, in terms of exercising, because Aquarius is a fixed sign. So it always follows through with what it is trying to achieve. And it will also help you build resilience with any adversities you may be facing with respect to relationships or other people. Now, Ketu will be in your 12th house, and this house represents spiritual and emotional comfort. So emotional comfort means your state of feeling secure and relaxed. So now in terms of relationships, this Ketu can cause a little bit of a lack of emotional connection or intimacy in a relationship. And this can lead to some feelings of loneliness and isolation. This is also a time where you may need to release emotional pain and blockages, and it can be difficult to heal with Ketu here. So you can feel a sense of numbness. So a person can mentally disconnect and sort of shut their brain down in order to protect themselves from any overwhelming stress or trauma. And sometimes when people are feeling like this, they tend to focus more on other things, such as, your work or your career, which is shown by Rahu's transit in your 6th house. Ketu in the 12th house can also bring unplanned expenses. So you could be spending money on things that you didn't really budget for or plan for. So this could be things like emergency travel expenses or medical emergencies, home repairs, and there is also a possibility to lose money through unknown sources. So things like fraud can also happen, which means that you have to ensure when you are doing things like online banking, you have to take care in terms of what you're clicking on. So links and emails you receive, you have to be careful what you click on. Ketu in the 12th house shows that you need to let go of any ego spending. So if you have any ego spending where you try to spend money to impress others or improve how others may perceive your status, this is not a good time for that. So if you don't spend in your limits, it can cause financial instability. And finally, Ketu here in the 12th house can be a little bit like Mars. So it can cause breaks in your sleep. So you can experience broken sleep during this phase. For Libra natives, Rahu will transit into your 5th house of Aquarius, while Ketu will transit into your 11th house of Leo. So this transit is happening on your 5 and 11 house axis, which is all about personal expression and creative pursuits versus social connection and achieving goals through collaboration. So Rahu's transit in the 5th house shows that you will step out of your comfort zone, take risks in order to seek out fun and enjoyment in your life. Your Jupiter is also aspecting Rahu from the 9th house and is encouraging Rahu to be free, independent, expand and build greater confidence, and to also think progressively in order to expand your life. Aquarius is a fixed sign and Jupiter and Saturn are in good houses, so there can be plenty of positive results here as long as you stay somewhat grounded and realistic and think long term. Because Rahu in the 5th house will want instant fun, or rather great moments and immediate gratification. But you don't just want to enjoy the moment, you obviously want things to last a very long time. So that's where you have to try and think long term. But definitely there are lots of good results to be had with this Rahu transit. The 5th house is also to do with all types of creative jobs and hobbies. So this is a very good time to start a new hobby or expand a hobby. So it could be badminton, squash, it could be drawing and painting, it could be learning or playing a musical instrument. So it can be anything that you enjoy, and this can also potentially create an income stream for you because your 5th house lord Saturn is in the 6th house in a very creative sign of Pisces. So this is a win-win situation. So if you have any interest whatsoever in creative things or starting a creative business of some sort, then this is a time to do it. And you can get positive results as long as that business is supported in your natal chart. The 5th house is also to do with romance, and Rahu in Aquarius can create moments of deep passion and unconventional love interests. So you might be drawn to forbidden relationships and prone to infatuation to seek out partners who are mysterious or unavailable. So with Aquarius being here, a person can also start a romance with someone in their network circle. So if there is any existing friend that you like, something can happen. You could start a romance with someone older, it is also possible. And Jupiter is aspecting your 5th house. So this person can also be from abroad. They can be someone who's highly intelligent, and they could be like a guru to you. So if you're single, it's up to you to select that right person. The 5th house also represents children. So it's highly likely that children can be born without marriage taking place with Rahu here. So Rahu doesn't like to follow the rules of being married and then having a baby. So obviously not for everyone, but if you are at a stage in your life where you want to find a partner and you want to have kids, then the energy is good to have children. Or if you're already married and you want to have a baby, this is also a good period. And Jupiter is also aspecting the 5th house. So, and with Rahu, it can also show that you may go down alternative paths in order to have a child. So this can happen, and it can give you the desired results. As I mentioned, the 5th house with Rahu is about things happening now, things happening in the moment rather than building for the future. So therefore, the older you are, the better this transit is, generally speaking, because a person in their 40s would know what they want in life, generally speaking, whereas someone in their 20s, they are still experimenting and unsure about the future. Now, Ketu in the 11th house, this house obviously shows your income. So there can be a few different results here. So firstly, this Ketu can cause some dissatisfaction with the money you are earning. So you might not be happy with your salary, and therefore with Rahu being in your 5th house, you might be looking at making money through alternative ways. So this is a time where you have to try and remain content with what you are earning. And you have to remember that life is all about the phases, where sometimes in a period you don't earn as much, but good times will come again where you can earn more. So this is more about just learning acceptance. Secondly, Ketu here can give you abstract sources of income. So income that you didn't really work for, which can include things like inheritance, lottery winnings, interest income, dividend income, capital gains, royalties, gifts, and if you're a senior person, you might get a pension or a superannuation. Thirdly, Ketu in the 11th house may not affect your income, so your income may not change, but mentally you could feel a detachment from materialistic pursuits. So there can be a lack of focus on financial matters. So a few different results depending on your natal chart. Ketu in the 11th house can cause social isolation or withdrawing from social interactions. So you may not feel like socializing as much, but because Rahu is in Aquarius, Jupiter is in Gemini, so these are air signs, it means that you will come across people and opportunities will be there for networking. Ketu in the 11th house can also show that the people you may find yourself networking strongly with will be those that have a selfless nature, that have a strong sense of compassion and empathy, and those who are not driven by personal gain. Ketu here could show losing a friend or someone in your social circle, because Jupiter will also transit in the nakshatra called Adra, which is a very transformative energy, which can also change friendship dynamics. For Scorpio natives, Rahu will transit into your 4th house in the sign of Aquarius, while Ketu will transit into your 10th house of Leo. So this nodal transit will be happening in your 4-10 house axis, which is all about balancing your home and emotional security with your career and reputation. So firstly, when Rahu is transiting the 4th house, it does bring significant transformation to your home, and you can have an extremely strong desire to improve your living standard and security, because you'll want to feel a sense of comfort wherever you are living. Jupiter is also aspecting Rahu from the 8th house, so this does show significant transformation in 4th house matters, and which can obviously include your home. So when Jupiter is aspecting Rahu from the 8th house, it means that there is some support being provided to you to help you feel comfortable in your living standard. So for example, if you buy a house, then obviously a bank is providing you a loan so that you can buy a place. Or you could have a friend somewhere in a different city and they might welcome you to go and stay with them. So definitely there are high chances of something changing, some kind of movement is possible. And Rahu in this house can actually make you move residence, move city, move country. If you're someone who is settled in the home, So you might have been living in your home for 25 years and you have no plans on moving, but Rahu can still create a desire in your mind to improve the condition of your house. So this could be, renovating your property. It could be, doing up your garden, doing up your garage. So spending money to make something better in your house. Now Ketu will be in your 10th house. So this can be a time where you might be less focused on your career or less concerned about climbing the corporate ladder. And it can also show a state of contentment and acceptance. So you might just be happy where you are. But Ketu can cause unexpected changes. So it can be something like, it could be like a restructure in your company where you're working, or your job might not change, but your reporting lines or responsibilities may change. If you are someone who is very career driven, then Ketu here can also cause some dissatisfaction. So some of you, especially if you are career orientated, you might not be happy where you are. So you'll be seeking some kind of change in your job. And Ketu is a bit like Mars, where a break in job can happen, or you could find yourself in a new job. Now, it's important to remember that no planetary energy is completely bad or malefic in a house. So although Ketu is not great in the 10th house, it can give some good results in some scenarios. So Ketu, it represents compassion. So if you are working as a social worker or within the health sector, within disability, then, and if your job involves going to different patients' houses to provide care, then this transit of Ketu can be good. Ketu in the 10th house is feeling dissatisfied, being in that same place or that same environment 5 days a week. So this transit can be good if you are working for yourself, or if you have your own business, or if you have a job that involves a lot of movement. So like a delivery driver or a mobile technician, then Ketu is also good here. And Saturn is in the 5th house. So it is supporting those that have their own business rather than those who are working for a company. Now back to Rahu in the 4th house. This house, it represents happiness. So Rahu in this house can make you do something in order to find that happiness. So for example, I talked about, moving home. So that's one thing. So whatever you want that will make you happy, you will do it. So this is obviously different for everyone because different things make people happy. So it could be, spending more time with your family and mother. It could be taking time off work and traveling around the world. It could be buying the latest mobile phone or, designer clothes or handbags, or even buying a car. So it can be tangible or intangible. But one thing that can happen here as well is that a person can also have an affair because they might not be happy in their marriage or in their home. So they will try and search for something better. But in the end, they can regret it. So if you are someone who is not happy in your relationship, just be mindful of what you are giving up. Saturn is also in your 5th house and it's aspecting the 7th house. So many Scorpio people, especially Scorpio moon people, will feel some challenge in their one-to-one relationship. And Ketu in the 10th house shows a lack of happiness in relationships. So in terms of one-to-one connections, this transit of the nodes in the 4-10 house axis is generally not considered beneficial. Now, when Ketu transits the when Rahu transits the fourth house, if you are not a family orientated person, then during this transit you can also feel like a black sheep. So you can feel misunderstood. You can feel like you don't share the same values, beliefs as the people you are living with. And overall, you can feel disconnected. So that can be another reason why you might feel like changing where you live. For Sagittarius natives, Rahu will transit into your third house of Aquarius, while Ketu will transit into your ninth house of Leo. So this transit of the lunar nodes is happening in your 3-9 house axis, which is all about things which are within your grasp or control, and things that you can do in the present, which is the third house, and things which are not quite in control, and expansion of the future, which is your ninth house. So first of all, when Rahu transits the third house, it's a good transit because you'll be able to invest in your life. You'll be able to put your energy and effort to nurture your own self-interests. So this transit will give you a sense of purpose, which will lead to a more fulfilling and meaningful life. This will be a time where you can engage in hobbies and interests and learn new skills, discover hidden talents, and really understand your strengths and passions. Rahu here will increase your creativity and innovation in all areas of your life. So with Rahu here, you are moving beyond any restrictive beliefs and habits. So you might have been restricting yourself. You might have had, thoughts in your head that, oh, I can't do this. But with Rahu here, you will now say, I can do this. So Rahu will give you that confidence. The Lord of your third house, Saturn, is in Pisces. And this can also be a good thing because in Pisces, Saturn is struggling to build boundaries. So if there are no boundaries and nothing restricting you, that means that you can push far ahead. But always you have to be mindful of pushing ahead in an ethical way. Now, since Jupiter is aspecting Rahu, it can show that other people, it could be your partner, or other people can encourage you or motivate you to become a better version of yourself. And they can also help you nurture any creative talents. Rahu in the third house with the aspect of Jupiter can show a period of traveling with other people or with your partner. They can also teach you some things and give you the courage and confidence to take risks. The third house also represents communication. And Rahu's transit in Aquarius here will help you find your voice. If you're someone who struggles to interact with people, by the end of this transit, you will find it easier to interact with people. You will embrace communication, dive into new subjects, and watch as the world expands through every conversation and every piece of knowledge you gather. With Rahu in the third house, it can increase the curiosity of a person. It increases the curiosity a person has about themselves. So you will be exploring your inner world and you'll be identifying areas of growth and making intentional choices to develop yourself. You can discover a passion which can lead to a greater sense of purpose and drive. The third house is associated with the stage of life where a person is learning and developing. So this is a great time to start a business, especially a business related to serving the community, because it is in the sign of Aquarius, or anything involved with communication, such as content creating, vlogging, writing, marketing, and anything involved with technology. And this is also a time that you can start a business with a partner or with, other people, because of Jupiter's aspect from the 7th house. So anything involving the 7th house can support a business that you may want to start. Now, the 9th house is where Ketu is transiting, and this house is about the potential or possibility of the future. Or this house can also show what other people want you to become, or about the growth and expansion that you wanted in your future. So kind of like your dreams a little bit. So the third house is about how you want to spend your energy and effort right now. And the 9th house is about how others want you to spend it, or the hopes that you had about the future, if that makes sense. So for example, when you are 25 and you have this hope that in 10 years time you want to be married with kids, or when you're a teenager your parents can be influencing you in what to study, and when things don't go according to how people would have hoped, then a person can become a little bit detached and almost kind of feel like, oh, I give up. So that's what Ketu in the 9th house can make a person feel. So with this Rahu in the 3rd house, it will let you focus on what you can control and what you can achieve right now, as opposed to in the future. So with Ketu here in the 9th house, you don't really want to do what other people are telling you. You might feel detached from the established norms and beliefs that you grew up with and what your parents may have instilled in you. You'll feel a little bit disconnected with your cultural or traditional beliefs, and you may not be thinking too much about the future now, and instead focusing on what you can control, what is in your grasp, and what you can do right now, as I mentioned before. So for example, this Ketu in the 9th house can sometimes show a disinterest in studying, and Rahu in the 3rd house is giving you the urge to follow your passion. So for example, a person could drop out of their course and do some sort of business. So a person might say, I don't want to become an engineer or doctor, I want to be an artist or a content creator or a writer. So that's what can happen. However, there are some subjects which Ketu represents, such as mathematics and social sciences. So if you are studying like an abstract subject or anything that encompasses human behavior and society, then this Ketu can help you in the 9th house. Ketu in the 9th house can also show feeling detached from your father. So you may not get along with him, or you could be away from your father, or your father could be away from you. So there can be some kind of distance, either physically or emotionally. For Capricorn natives, Rahu will move into your 2nd house of Aquarius, while Ketu will shift into your 8th house of Leo. So this lunar node transit will be happening in your 2-8 house axis, which explores the themes around personal values and resources versus shared resources and values. So the meaning of this transit is that you will need to learn to rely on yourself rather than other people. That is what essentially this transit is about. So the 2nd house is one of the houses for career. So here it represents the finances you have. So Rahu's transit here is about building your own finances. So with Jupiter in the 6th house and aspecting Rahu, this is a time you can enhance your career and build your livelihood. If you're following transits from the moon, then your Sarasati is over, and that is good news for Capricorn people, Capricorn moon sign people, and Saturn has moved into your third house, which is a good house for it to be in. And with Rahu in Aquarius, this is also good because Aquarius is a fixed sign. And when Rahu is transiting a fixed sign, it helps to build stability and focus on second house matters. So in terms of wealth, Rahu here can give you the urge to grow your assets. And because Jupiter is aspecting Rahu from the 6th house, it can show a person finding a better paid job, or a person could be doing lots of additional shifts and hours to earn more money. And it can also show the purchase of a property. The Lord of the 2nd house, Saturn, in the 3rd house can also show that you can make money through your own self-efforts. So this is good for those who are self-employed or small business owners. Or if you want to start your own small business, then this is also a really good time. However, Rahu in the 2nd house can also increase your expenses because you would be spending on things you value. So you might be a collector of some sort. So it's not necessarily that you will save all of your money, but it can show you spending money on assets or buying things that you value. So for example, buying a property or buying a car. The 2nd house also represents family. And Rahu in Aquarius can be quite eccentric and unconventional, which is obviously not that good for relationships. However, if your family is quite progressive and you have lots of freedom, then Rahu in Aquarius will not cause you too much of an issue. But if you are from a very traditional family, then this Rahu in Aquarius can cause some issues because Rahu and the sign of Aquarius, it's a rebellious energy that doesn't really want to follow family values and traditions. So this transit can make a person move out of the family home, or they can be forced to be away from their family or the people that they are living with. The 2nd house represents your family and the values that you grew up with. So it represents your family's values and beliefs. So again, this can be a period where you will want to be true to your authentic self. So there can be a disconnect between, your beliefs and, say, for example, your family's beliefs. So that's what Rahu in Aquarius in the 2nd house is about. It's about finding your own true values, because just because, you live with your family doesn't mean you share the same beliefs or values. Rahu here will also increase your self-worth, where you will feel you deserve respect and consideration. Now, in terms of relationships, when Rahu is in the 2nd house and Ketu is in the 8th house, it obviously causes an imbalance where you are identifying more with, your own personal values and beliefs and not with your partner's. So you can feel disconnected from your partner's values, in-laws, beliefs. So this Rahu and Ketu transit has the potential to disturb relationships. So with this Ketu in the 8th house, you have to be flexible, compromise, and some of the things you have to let go or let things be if you want your relationship or marriage to work. Ketu in the 8th house can also cause problems with in-laws. So if you are married, you may not see eye to eye with them. The transit of Ketu in the 8th house also encourages you to let go of any control and any manipulation in your relationship, as well as any unhealthy attachments or fears around shared resources and other people's money. This period is essentially telling you to surrender and release any patterns of possessiveness into a healthier sense of empowerment. Now, when Ketu is transiting the 8th house, it can also cause major unexpected changes in your life, or you will have to go through a psychological transformation. So Ketu here can suddenly change the direction of your life, something you didn't plan for, but for whatever reason it happened. So say, for example, two people are married and the wife is heavily dependent on the husband, but the husband passes away or needs to go abroad for work, and he might be away for 1 year. So now the woman is on her own and needs to rely on herself, which is what is represented by Rahu in the 2nd house, where she will have to do things on her own by herself and not depend on anyone. So that's just an example. Another example could be that you're moving abroad for work to an unknown country. So when you're moving to a new place, you don't have anybody else, or you may not have anybody else, and you have to rely on yourself because there's nobody else there for you. Now, because Jupiter is aspecting Rahu, in this particular case, or in this transit, there will be someone of support there to guide you, because Jupiter is a guru, Jupiter is a teacher, and wherever Jupiter is aspecting, there is support there. So whatever circumstances you have in your life, there will be a little bit of support. But generally, Ketu in the 8th house can mean a lack of support from family, and if you do experience relationship dynamics changing, then Ketu here is a time of acceptance and trying your best to move on if you need to do that. For Aquarius natives, Rahu will transit into your 1st house of Aquarius, while Ketu will transit into your 7th house of Leo. So this transit is about releasing excessive dependence on others that you may have, and finding your own personal autonomy where you will firmly accept who you are and no longer be concerned with what other people think of you. So when Rahu transits the 1st house, it is a period of self-discovery and asserting your own individuality. So everything that you wanted to do, anything that you wanted to do your own way, is what you're going to be working towards for the next 18 months. So it sounds like a selfish transit, but it is not the case, because this is a sign of Aquarius, which we are talking about, which is a humanitarian sign. So this transit can also be about helping people the way you want to help and not how other people tell you, if that makes sense. Rahu in Aquarius in the 1st house is a time where any personal desires that you always wanted to fulfill can come true, because Aquarius is a sign of hopes, wishes, and dreams. And with Jupiter's aspect from the 5th house on Rahu, you will get any required support that you need to make your ambitions come true. So it is positive in that sense. However, Rahu is an energy that wants to experiment things. It wants to try something new and break free from any old patterns. So therefore, if you are in a committed relationship, then Ketu transiting the 7th house means that you can feel rather detached from your partner or family and feel disconnected emotionally. Your partner could be a source of stress due to unresolved, disagreements. And you can also feel some resentment. And it's not just your partner, it can be, other people in general, which could include a business partner if you have one, or other family members. because your Saturn is in the second house. So definitely for Aquarius moon people especially, you'll feel some unhappiness with family or the people that you are living with. So this transit, I would say, is better for young people who are in their 20s, who are still, figuring their life out and experimenting different things. So there's a saying that, the world is your oyster, which means that you can do anything you wish to because you have the ability to do so. Whereas if this transit is happening, and if you're 45 and you're married with kids and you feel like breaking free from those responsibilities. So the more responsibilities you have in your life, the more, damaging this transit potentially could be. But it's not always the case. It depends on your natal chart and each individual life. When Rahu is in the first house, especially in Aquarius, your personality can change a little bit. So you can become a little bit eccentric, and there can be a desire for unconventional experiences, and therefore you have to be careful with some of the decisions that you make, because Rahu, it generally gives temporary happiness rather than long term. So it will make you search for happiness in the moment, but there is no guarantee it will continue long into the future. But with Rahu here, it can give you good results too. So it can make you more ambitious. It can increase the focus on your own identity. So if you're not a confident person, then this Rahu and the aspect of Jupiter will help you become more confident, which is a positive. Rahu can also make you enhance your creativity, embrace your uniqueness. Your appearance could be enhanced. So if you're someone who takes a lot of pride in how they look, you can get good results from the gym and any, skincare routine process that you have. Rahu can influence you with artificial things as well. So, and this can include harmful things such as alcohol, drugs. And in terms of health, Rahu can also make you go through a medical scanner, or you will have to put your body through some sort of medical device, or there can be a medical device inside your body. Ketu in the 7th house can show poor health of your spouse, which can also impact your relationship. So if you want your relationship to work and stay strong, this is a time where you have to stand by each other, let things go, and compromise even though things may not be fair. Because Ketu wants you to surrender, sacrifice, and stay committed. Ketu is about unconditional love. And if your relationship or marriage is built on, loving unconditionally, then this Ketu will not cause you any problems. But unfortunately these days, most relationships, they're built on, money, appearance, both partners having some control. And that is why there's a lot of, separation and divorce these days. So these are the things, everybody wants, like money, good appearance in a partner. But Ketu doesn't really care about these things. All it cares about is compassion, unwavering support, and no expectations. Ketu in the 7th house can also cause problems to arise due to any contractual issues. So any binding documents, such as, for example, rental agreements, there can be something unfair about them, which can bring disagreements. So you have to take care in terms of signing documents, or there is a possibility of unexpected termination. For Pisces natives, Rahu will transit into your 12th house in the sign of Aquarius, while Ketu will transit into your 6th house of Leo. So this lunar node transit is happening in your 12-6 house axis, which is all about balancing your work, your routine, being in control whilst having freedom, being able to isolate yourself with your own company and being able to withdraw from society. So when Ketu is transiting the 6th house, it shows that you may no longer have any expectations in your work or your workplace. So for example, if you always wanted to stand out and be the star of the show at work, there is no longer a need for you. If you have difficult co-workers, you no longer care whether you get on with them or not. You just want to do your work and go home. So that's what Ketu here is all about. Being content with whatever situation you have at your work. But the problem is people are generally not content, and we live in an age now where it is so easy to change your job. So therefore this Ketu in the 6th house can show you may leave your job or some sort of changes happening at your work. And Jupiter is aspecting your 10th house. So definitely either you will change your job, leave your job, or there can be some sort of changes happening internally which affects your role. Now with Ketu in the 6th house, it can also make you want to break free, especially if you are a Pisces moon person. So you will want to escape from the constraints, responsibilities, routine that feel too much like a burden. You might be feeling trapped in your life due to work stress, financial burden, or difficult relationships. So with this transit, it's important to focus on what you can control and take small, manageable steps towards your goal. Saturn is in the 1st house, which will help you stay in the right direction. But Ketu here Ketu may change your path. So whilst maintaining that direction. So it's like driving a car to your final destination. Which route do you take? So this is similar. Which path do you take to get to your final goal? Rahu's transit in the 12th house can show increased spending on things that make you happy, which can include travel. It can include spending on luxury items and conveniences. You can also spend on your network circle. So you might spend money on travel to go see friends. And Aquarius, remember, is the natural sign of the 11th house. So you can be spending money on your hopes, wishes and desires. So things that you always wanted to do. But you do have to try and manage this carefully because Rahu can cause impulsive spending and some financial instability. Now, in worst case scenarios, Rahu in the 12th house, it does represent escapism, as I mentioned. So escapism can be just like traveling or spending money on entertainment, or even being too much of a workaholic to get away from any personal problems or emotions. But escapism can include substance use, such as drugs and alcohol, to alter one's perception of reality and escape from unpleasant things and feelings. So that's something you do have to be careful of. With Ketu in the 6th house and Saturn in the 1st house, you do also need to look after your well-being. So Ketu is an energy where people can ignore any small or subtle, symptoms that may pop up. So it's important to take care of yourself. With Ketu here, you can have an improper diet. And because Ketu is half of the body, so Rahu is the head, this placement can also give stomach and intestine problems. So this area can be sensitive during the next 18 months.